Well, hey there, exhausted listener. Yeah, you. The one scrolling through their phone at 2 a.m., wondering why sleep won't come. Good news. Tonight we're traveling back in time to an era that makes your worst Monday look like a spa day. We're talking about life as an early Homo sapiens, roughly 70,000 years ago, when your morning routine involved checking for predators instead of emails. Tonight, you're not just going to hear about cave life. You're going to feel it. Every itch, every stench, every moment of primal discomfort that made simply existing a full-time job. And trust me, by the time we're done, you'll be so grateful for your memory foam mattress that you'll drift right off. So here's what you're going to do. Put that phone face down. Turn off the lights. Let yourself sink into that pillow yes, that miracle of modern engineering that your ancestors would have traded a mammoth tusk for. Get comfortable, because we're about to make you very uncomfortable. And then, paradoxically, that discomfort is going to lull you straight to sleep. Oh, and before the Stone Age swallows us whole, do me a favor. If this kind of prehistoric suffering helps you catch some Z's, go ahead and subscribe to the channel, smash that like button, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss any future historical torture sessions. And drop a comment down below telling me where you're listening from and what ungodly hour insomnia has dragged you to. It's always nice to know I'm not the only one awake at these hours, suffering through history. All right, let's go back. Way back. To when roughing it wasn't a weekend camping trip, it was just life. You open your eyes, and the first thing you notice isn't light. It's cold. Bone deep, seeping through everything cold that makes your modern winter mornings feel like a tropical vacation. The sun hasn't risen yet. It won't for another hour or so. And you're lying on the cave floor on a thin layer of dried grass that's supposed to be your bed. Spoiler alert, it's not doing much. Your body aches in places you didn't know could ache. Your hip bone has been pressing against the stone floor all night through that pathetic grass padding, and there's a special kind of numbness radiating down your leg. You shift, and the grass crackles beneath you, releasing a musty, earthy smell that's become so familiar, you barely notice it anymore. Barely. It's the scent of dried vegetation mixed with the smoke residue that permanently coats everything in this cave. The darkness is thick. Not the darkness of your bedroom with a little light pollution creeping through the curtains. This is absolute darkness. The kind that makes you question whether your eyes are even open. You can hear breathing around you, your family, your tribe members, all packed into this cave entrance because, hey, at least it's not outside where the wind cuts like stone blades and things, with teeth roam around looking for midnight snacks. Someone coughs in the darkness. It's a wet, rattling cough that's been going around the group for weeks. There's no cough medicine here, no antibiotics, no doctor's office. You either get better or you don't. Natural selection, the universe's favorite game show. You can feel something crawling on your arm. Probably a bug, definitely a bug. Could be a beetle, could be something worse. You brush it off without much thought because this happens roughly 17 times per night. And honestly, you've got bigger problems. The itch on your scalp reminds you that you're probably hosting a small civilization of lice up there, and your body has become a timeshare property for various parasites. The animal skin covering you, your blanket, if we're being generous, smells like dead animal because, well, that's what it is. Nobody's invented tanning properly yet, so this hide still has bits of fat and tissue clinging to it, and it's stiff in places, soft in others, and generally about as comfortable as wrapping yourself in a yoga mat made of beef jerky. Your mouth tastes like something died in it, which makes sense, because the last thing you ate was partially cooked meat that was probably starting to turn, and you didn't exactly have a toothbrush to freshen up afterward. Dental hygiene is not a thing yet. Your teeth are tools, and they're slowly wearing down with every tough piece of meat you tear into, every root you chew, every moment of your existence. You lie there, waiting for enough light to filter into the cave entrance so you can actually see where you're going when you stand up. Because the alternative is stepping on someone, or worse, stepping in something. The cave floor is an adventure in biological hazards. The cold intensifies. It's that pre-dawn cold that happens when the temperature drops to its lowest point of the night, right before the sun starts thinking about making an appearance. You pull the stiff animal skin tighter around your shoulders, and it scrapes against your neck. Your body wants to shiver, but you've trained yourself not to waste the energy. Every calorie counts when your next meal is literally running away from you on 4 legs. Finally, you see it. A faint gray light beginning to seep into the cave entrance. Not sunrise yet, just the promise of it. The promise that you survived another night. Congratulations, you get to do this all over again tonight. Standing up is a production. Your joints crack and pop like bubble wrap, and there's a moment where your back just refuses to cooperate. You're maybe 25 years old, practically middle-aged by Paleolithic standards, and your body already feels like it's been through a war, which, in a sense, it has. Every day is a war against hunger, cold, predators, and the general hostility of existence. You shuffle toward the cave entrance, careful to avoid the dark shapes of sleeping tribe members scattered across the floor. Someone's snoring, a sound that echoes off the cave walls and somehow makes the whole space feel even damper. The air is thick with the smell of smoke from last night's fire, which is now just smoldering embers in the center of the cave. That smoke smell has infiltrated everything: your skin, your hair, that animal hide you call clothing. Speaking of clothing, let's talk about your outfit. You're wearing what amounts to an animal hide wrapped around your body and tied with sinew. It's heavy, it's awkward, it smells like a butcher shop, and it chafes in ways that would make modern hikers weep. The hide still has the fur on it because, surprise, that's the warmest option. But it also means you're basically wearing the animal's exterior, complete with whatever that animal walked through before it became your jacket. The hide rubs against your skin, which is perpetually grimy, because bathing is not a regular occurrence. Water is cold, often scarce, and using it to wash yourself seems like a waste when you could drink it instead. So you exist in a constant state of not quite clean, with a thin film of smoke residue, dirt, and dried sweat coating your body like a second skin. You'd be horrified if you could smell yourself objectively. but everyone else smells the same, so it's fine. This is just what humans smell like now. You step outside the cave entrance, and the cold hits you like a slap. The wind is cutting across the landscape, bringing with it the scent of pine trees and something else, maybe rain coming, or snow. The sky is that pale gray color of early morning, not quite light, but not quite dark anymore. And you can see your breath forming little clouds in front of your face. Your feet are wrapped in more animal hide, tied with strips of sinew to keep them from falling off. These are your shoes, and they're about as effective as wearing paper bags on your feet. Your toes are cold, probably going to stay cold all day, and there's a rock or stick or something poking through the bottom that's been bothering you for 3 days now. Around you, others are starting to emerge from the cave, looking about as enthusiastic as you feel. Which is to say, not at all. Someone starts trying to coax the fire back to life, adding small sticks to the embers and blowing gently. Smoke billows up, making everyone cough, and you turn your face away. Breakfast isn't happening yet. First, you need to gather firewood, and check the snares, and possibly track down that deer from yesterday that got away, and a dozen other tasks that need to happen before you can even think about eating. Your stomach growls, reminding you that you haven't eaten since late afternoon yesterday. And that meal was pretty meager, some stringy meat and a handful of tough roots that tasted like dirt. You look out across the landscape, which is beautiful in that harsh, indifferent way that nature has. Rolling hills, scattered trees, a stream in the distance that you can't see but know is there because you've walked to it 1,000 times. Somewhere out there are the animals you need to hunt, and somewhere out there are the animals that might hunt you. It's a big game of who's eating whom, and you're right in the middle of it. The sun starts to peek over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. It's gorgeous. It's also meaningless because pretty sunrises don't fill your stomach or warm your bones. You sigh, your breath clouding in the cold air, and prepare yourself for another day of simply trying to survive. Let's talk about your cave. This is home sweet home, except there's nothing sweet about it. You think your studio apartment is small? Try sharing a cave entrance with 15 to 25 other people, all of their belongings, and the constant presence of smoke from the fire that you can never let go completely out. The cave goes back pretty far into the hillside, but you don't use the deep parts. Those areas are pitch black, cold as death, and who knows what might be living back there. Bats, probably. Maybe a bear decided to hibernate in the back, and nobody's noticed yet. So everyone clusters near the entrance, where at least some daylight can filter in, and where the smoke from the fire can actually escape instead of suffocating everyone. The smoke. Oh, the smoke. It's everywhere, all the time. Your fire is the center of your universe. It provides warmth, light, protection from predators, and a way to cook food. But it also produces a constant stream of smoke that fills the cave, stings your eyes, makes you cough, and coats every surface with a layer of black residue. Your eyes water constantly from the smoke exposure. It's just part of life. You wake up with smoke in your lungs, you go to sleep with smoke in your lungs, and in between, you breathe more smoke. Modern air quality experts would have a collective heart attack if they spent 5 minutes in here. But for you, this is just Tuesday. Except you don't have names for days yet, so it's just day. Another day. The floor of the cave is covered in layers of organic debris, old grass bedding, animal bones from previous meals, ash from the fire, and various unidentifiable substances that have accumulated over months of occupation. Walking across it is like walking on a very crunchy, somewhat damp carpet that occasionally surprises you with something sharp or squishy. The walls of the cave are rough limestone, cold to the touch, and they sweat moisture in a way that makes everything feel perpetually damp. You can see your handprints on the walls in places where you've steadied yourself. Dark smudges against the gray stone. Maybe one day, someone will paint animals on these walls. But right now, you're too busy trying to find actual animals to worry about artistic representation. Your sleeping area, because we can't really call it a bed, is just a designated spot on the floor where you've laid down some dried grass. That grass needs to be replaced regularly because it gets crushed flat, starts to rot, and becomes home to various insects who appreciate the shelter. You've been meaning to gather fresh grass for days now, but somehow there's always something more urgent to do, like not starving. Storage is a creative endeavor. You don't have closets or shelves. Everything you own, tools, extra hides, dried meat if you're lucky, gets piled against the cave wall or hung from protrusions in the rock. Your entire material wealth could fit in a modern backpack, and most of it is stone tools and animal parts in various stages of processing. The smell is its own entity. It's a complex bouquet of smoke, unwashed humans, animal hides in various states of decay, old food, and the general funk that accumulates when you've got a group of people living in close quarters with no concept of ventilation. If someone from the modern era walked in here, they'd probably gag. But you've been living with this smell your whole life. This is what home smells like. At night, when the fire is banked and everyone's trying to sleep, the cave comes alive with sounds. Dripping water echoes from somewhere deeper in. The wind whistles past the entrance. Small animals scurry in the darkness. Someone's always coughing or shifting or getting up to relieve themselves just outside the cave entrance. The concept of a quiet, peaceful night's sleep is science fiction. And yet, despite all of this, the cave is safety. It's shelter from the wind and rain. It's protection from the predators that roam at night. It's where your tribe gathers, where the fire burns, where you return at the end of every exhausting day. It might be smoke-filled, damp, cold, and uncomfortable, but it's your smoke-filled, damp, cold, uncomfortable cave. And that counts for something. Let's discuss warmth, or rather, the desperate, constant, never-ending quest for it. You're cold right now. You were cold when you woke up. You'll be cold when you go to sleep tonight. Cold is the default state of existence, and warmth is those brief, precious moments huddled by the fire. The fire is everything. It's your heater, your nightlight, your burglar alarm, your cooking stove, and your social center all rolled into one. Keeping it going is a full-time job that the tribe shares in rotating shifts, because letting the fire go out is basically a death sentence. Starting a fire from scratch takes forever. You've got to use friction or strike sparks from rocks, and neither method is quick or guaranteed to work, especially if everything's damp. So the fire stays lit, fed constantly with whatever burnable material you can find. Dry wood is gold. Dead branches, bark, dried grass, animal dung when you're desperate. Someone's always on wood-gathering duty, scanning the landscape for fuel, because running out of firewood in the middle of a cold night is not an option. But here's the thing about fires in caves. The heat doesn't spread evenly. If you're right next to the fire, you're too hot on the side facing the flames and still cold on your back. If you're more than 6 feet away, you're just cold with a view of warm people. There's a constant shuffle of bodies trying to optimize their position, close enough to get heat, far enough to not get smoked out or burned by flying sparks. Your clothing situation is, charitably, primitive. You're wearing that animal hide we talked about, but wearing is a strong word for draped awkwardly around your body and secured with strips of sinew. The hide is heavy when it's dry and heavier when it's wet, which it often is because, surprise, you're living in an era before waterproofing. The fur side should be facing out to repel water, but that means the rough leather side is against your skin, causing a constant low-level chafing that you've learned to ignore. Or maybe you wear it fur side in for warmth, accepting that the outside will get soaked. There's no right answer. Both options are uncomfortable, just in different ways. Under the main hide, you might have wrapped your feet and lower legs with additional strips of leather, creating what could generously be called pants if you squint. These wrappings are held in place with more sinew ties, which dig into your skin and leave marks. Fashion is not a consideration. Function barely is. The main goal is less cold than being naked. Your hands are perpetually cold because you need them free to do things, and gloves haven't been invented yet. You tuck them under your arms when you can, blow on them, hold them near the fire until they sting from the heat, then watch them go numb again minutes after leaving the flames. At night, you pile on every hide you own, layer yourself with other tribe members for shared body heat, and basically create a human nest. Everyone's too cold to be shy about personal space. You sleep pressed against others, sharing warmth, breathing each other's air, creating a collective fog of human heat that's just barely enough to keep hypothermia at bay. But even then, in that pile of bodies and hides, you're still cold. The stone floor beneath you leaches heat from your body like a vampire. The cave walls radiate cold. The air itself is cold. You dream about warmth, the way modern people dream about winning the lottery, a fantasy that seems impossibly distant from your reality. And when you do get warm, really, truly warm, it's disorienting. You've spent so much time being cold that warmth almost feels wrong, like your body's forgotten what to do with it. But those moments are rare and precious. Most of the time, you're just managing different levels of cold, trying to stay on the survivable side of the temperature spectrum. Welcome to Paleolithic climate control. Primitive, uncomfortable, and your only option. You're hungry. You've been hungry since you woke up. And honestly, you were probably hungry in your sleep too. Hunger is the background noise of your existence, a constant low hum that sometimes crescendos into stomach-cramping urgency, but never fully goes away. The concept of 3 square meals a day? That's fantasy. You eat when you can catch something, find something, or scavenge something that won't immediately kill you. Right now, someone's warming up leftover meat from yesterday's hunt near the fire. And when I say warming up, I mean holding it near flames until it's slightly less cold than it was before. Food preservation is a tricky business when you don't have refrigeration, and this meat is definitely on its way to becoming questionable. But waste is not an option, so you'll eat it anyway, and hope your gut can handle whatever microscopic hitchhikers have started colonizing the flesh. The meat itself is tough venison from a deer taken 2 days ago, and it's been sitting in the back of the cave wrapped in leaves, which does exactly nothing to keep it fresh. You can smell it from here, that distinctive odor of meat that's starting to turn. Not quite rotten, but definitely past its prime. Your modern self would throw this in the garbage without a second thought. Your Paleolithic self is salivating. You grab a piece when it's offered, and it's simultaneously too hot on the outside and cold in the middle because even heating is not a thing yet. The texture is fibrous and dry, and you have to tear at it with your teeth like a predator because silverware is about 60,000 years away from being invented. Your jaw works hard, grinding the tough meat, and you can feel pieces of it stuck between your teeth pieces that will stay there because toothpicks aren't a thing either. As you chew, you're aware that this meat probably contains parasites, tapeworms, roundworms, various microscopic passengers looking for a new host. Cooking meat thoroughly would kill them, but thoroughly is a concept you don't really understand, and fire control is more art than science right now. So you eat, and you accept that your intestines are likely hosting a diverse ecosystem of unwanted guests. Along with the meat, someone passes around some roots that were dug up yesterday. They're dirty caked with actual dirt because washing food is not a priority, and you brush off the worst of it with your grimy hands before biting in. The roots are bitter and starchy, and they leave a gritty texture in your mouth. This is not a satisfying meal. This is fuel. This is the bare minimum your body needs to get through the day. Breakfast takes maybe 5 minutes. There's no sitting around the table, no conversation over coffee. You eat standing up quickly, alert to your surroundings because even mealtimes aren't entirely safe. Then the food is gone. Your stomach is slightly less empty than before, and it's time to go find more food because this amount won't last you through tomorrow. The taste lingers in your mouth, gamey meat, bitter roots, and the general funk of unwashed hands. You'd kill for a glass of water to wash it down, but the nearest water source is a 10-minute walk away, and you're not walking there just to drink. Water is precious. You'll drink when you're near the stream, not before. Your stomach gurgles, processing this dubious meal. There's a good chance you'll have digestive issues later, cramping, diarrhea, general intestinal distress. This is just part of life. Your gut is constantly under assault from parasites, bacteria, and food that's not quite safe to eat. You've learned to ignore the discomfort unless it becomes truly debilitating. And the worst part? You'll be hungry again in a few hours. This meal was a stopgap, a temporary solution to a permanent problem. The hunt for food never ends. It's the central organizing principle of your entire existence. Everything else, shelter, warmth, social interaction, is secondary to the endless quest to put something anything in your stomach. Now comes the part where you actually have to work. And by work, I mean engage in activities that will hopefully result in not starving, not freezing, and not being eaten. It's a full schedule. First priority: more firewood. The fire is humanity's greatest achievement so far, but it's a needy achievement that requires constant feeding. You grab the primitive basket woven from plant fibers by someone with more patience than you and head out into the landscape with a couple other tribe members. Safety in numbers is not just a saying, it's a survival strategy. The morning is cold, and your breath forms clouds as you walk. Your feet are already complaining about the poor excuse for shoes you're wearing, and you've only been walking for 5 minutes. There's a small stick or stone working its way through the bottom of your foot covering, and each step is a tiny jab of discomfort that you've learned to dissociate from. Gathering firewood sounds simple, but it's actually a complex operation. You need dry wood, which is surprisingly hard to find in a damp climate. Wet wood smokes more than it burns, and you've already got enough smoke in your life. You need dead branches that are the right size too small, and they burn too fast, too large, and they're hard to break and difficult to carry. You spend the next hour roaming the area, snapping branches off dead trees, picking up fallen limbs, evaluating each piece of wood with an expertise born from years of experience. This is skilled labor, even if it doesn't look like it. You know which trees have the best wood. You know which branches will burn cleanly and which will just create toxic smoke. You're a wood sommelier, and your life depends on your expertise. While you're gathering wood, you're also scanning for other useful things. Edible plants, animal tracks, anything that might be useful back at camp. Your brain is constantly in survival mode, cataloging everything you see, evaluating threats and opportunities. That's not just mindfulness. That's the only way to stay alive. You spot some berries on a bush. They look edible. Probably. You've seen birds eating them, which is generally a good sign but not a guarantee. Some plants are safe for birds, but deadly for humans. And the only way you know which is through generations of trial and error, emphasis on error, because those who guessed wrong aren't around to pass on their knowledge. You pick a few berries, and they're tart and slightly bitter. Not great, but not poisonous, as far as you can tell in the 30 seconds since you ate them. You pick more, stuffing them in your mouth as you work. They're not satisfying, but they're calories, and calories are the currency of survival. After an hour, your basket is full of wood, and your back is aching from bending over repeatedly. Your hands are covered in small cuts and scrapes from rough bark and sharp twigs. These will probably get infected because you can't exactly wash them properly. But minor infections are so common, they barely register as a problem. The walk back to the cave is harder because now you're carrying weight. The basket digs into your shoulder, and you have to stop twice to rest. You're maybe 25 years old, but your body feels ancient. Every day is physically demanding in ways that would destroy a modern office worker. When you finally get back to the cave, you dump the firewood in the pile near the entrance, and somebody else immediately starts feeding pieces into the fire. Your contribution will last maybe until tomorrow morning, which means somebody else will need to go out and gather more wood tomorrow. And the day after that. And the day after that. Forever. It never ends. Let's talk about personal hygiene, or more accurately, the complete absence of it. You smell badly, like really, truly, horrifically badly. But here's the thing, so does everyone else. So the smell is just the baseline atmosphere of human existence. Bathing is not a regular activity. Water is cold, often scarce, and frankly, you've got better things to do with your time than voluntarily submerging yourself in freezing water. Maybe once every few weeks, when it's relatively warm and you're near the stream anyway, you'll splash some water on yourself. This is not cleansing. This is just redistributing the dirt. Your hair is a matted disaster. It's probably dreadlocked by now, not by choice, but by sheer neglect. It's full of smoke residue, dirt, bits of plant matter, and almost certainly lice. The lice are a constant presence, a crawling reminder that your scalp is an ecosystem. You scratch absently, and your fingernails come away with evidence you don't examine too closely. Your skin is covered in a layer of grime that's built up over days, weeks, maybe months. It's a mixture of smoke residue, dirt, sweat, and dead skin cells that have created their own protective coating. In a weird way, this layer might actually help insulate you from the cold, though that's probably not the upside you're looking for. Your nails, both finger and toe, are long, broken, and packed with dirt. They're functional tools that you use for digging, scraping, and various other tasks, and the idea of trimming them is foreign. They break naturally when they get too long, usually at inconvenient moments that result in bleeding and pain. Let's address the elephant in the cave: bathroom habits. When you need to eliminate waste, you go outside the cave entrance, find a spot that's not too close to where people gather, and do your business. There's no toilet paper. There's no toilet. There's just you, squatting in the cold, using leaves or grass or just not cleaning up very thoroughly. This means that everyone's always got a certain amount of fecal contamination on their hands and body. You eat with these hands. You prepare food with these hands. You touch your face, your mouth, everything with these hands. The parasite load in your intestines is staggering: worms, protozoa, bacteria, the full gastrointestinal greatest hits collection. Intestinal parasites are so common that they're just part of the human condition. You have stomach cramps regularly. Diarrhea is a frequent visitor. Your stools are full of worms that you can sometimes see wriggling in your waist, and this doesn't even particularly alarm you anymore. This is normal. This is life. Your teeth are in rough shape. They're yellowed and stained, wearing down from constant use as tools. Some people in your tribe are missing teeth, lost to decay or trauma. There's no dentistry, no fillings, no root canals. When a tooth goes bad, it either falls out eventually or it kills you through infection. Those are your options. Your breath, predictably, is atrocious. A combination of rotting food particles stuck between teeth, poor oral health, and the general bacterial ecosystem in your mouth creates a smell that would make a modern person gag. But again, everyone's breath is bad, so it's just another background smell that you've learned to tune out. The only grooming that happens regularly is for practical reasons, not aesthetic ones. You might pick lice out of each other's hair, not because you want to be lice-free, impossible goal, but to keep the population manageable. It's social bonding that also serves a functional purpose, the Stone Age equivalent of going to a spa day, Except there's nothing relaxing about it. Hunting time. This is the main event, the thing that determines whether your tribe eats well this week or starves. No pressure. You're equipped with state-of-the-art Paleolithic technology. A wooden spear with a sharpened stone point attached to the end with sinew and some kind of primitive adhesive. This spear represents hours of work finding the right stone, flaking it into shape, attaching it securely to a straight shaft. It's your most valuable possession, and you're about to risk your life with it. The hunting party consists of 5 people, all male, all relatively young because old people, anyone over 35, don't have the speed and endurance necessary for this work. You've been tracking a small herd of deer for 2 days, learning their patterns, figuring out where they sleep, where they drink. The plan is simple in concept, terrifying in execution. You'll approach downwind so they don't smell you, which is a challenge given how strongly you smell. You'll get as close as possible, then sprint toward them, hoping to drive them toward where the other hunters are waiting. Someone will get close enough to thrust a spear into one of the animals, ideally hitting something vital. Then you'll track the wounded animal until it collapses from blood loss. That's the plan. Plans rarely survive contact with actual animals. You move through the forest, trying to be quiet, which is difficult when you're wearing crunchy leather and your stomach is growling loud enough to scare prey. Every snapping twig sounds like a gunshot. Every bird that flutters away might alert the deer to your presence. Your heart is pounding, and it's not from the exertion. It's from the adrenaline, the fear, the understanding that this hunt is dangerous. Deer are not helpless. They're fast, they're strong, and a panicked deer can gore you with its antlers or kick you hard enough to break bones. And that's just the immediate danger. The long-term threat is failure. If you don't catch anything, everyone goes hungry. You spot them. 4 deer grazing in a small clearing, beautiful and oblivious. Your mouth waters just looking at them. That's meat. That's survival. That's several days of not being hungry. The lead hunter gives the signal, and suddenly, everyone's running. The deer look up, startled, and bolt in exactly the wrong direction, away from the waiting hunters, deeper into the forest. Your carefully laid plan is already falling apart. You're sprinting now, branches whipping at your face, your lungs burning, your legs pumping. One deer is slightly slower than the others, maybe injured or old. You focus on that one, closing the distance, raising your spear. The throw is everything. You've practiced this thousands of times, but practice is calm and controlled. And this is chaos. You hurl the spear with all your strength, and for a moment it arcs through the air, beautiful and deadly. It hits, not perfectly. You were aiming for the chest, and you got the hindquarter, but it hits. The deer screams, a sound that's surprisingly human and deeply unsettling. It stumbles, trying to run with the spear embedded in its leg, and you're chasing again, waiting for blood loss to do its work. This part takes a while. The deer is terrified and in pain, leaving a trail of blood through the forest. You follow, relentless, because you can't afford to lose this kill. Your own legs are shaking with exhaustion, but you push through because hunger is a powerful motivator. Finally, After what feels like hours but is probably 20 minutes, the deer collapses. You approach carefully wounded animals can still be dangerous, and deliver the final blow with your stone knife. It's not quick or clean or humane. It's necessary. You stand over the dead deer, breathing hard, covered in sweat despite the cold, and feel a complex mixture of triumph, relief, and something like grief. You just killed another living thing. You'll do it again next week. This is the reality of being a predator. Now comes the hard part: getting this deer back to camp. It weighs over 100 pounds, and you're miles from the cave. Several of you will need to carry it together, and it will take hours. Your celebration can wait until you're actually eating. Welcome to the Paleolithic work week. It's all overtime, and nobody's getting paid. Now you've got a dead deer, and the real work begins. Butchering an animal with Stone Age tools is not like anything you've seen in a butcher shop. It's messy, brutal, and takes hours of back-breaking labor. First, you need to get the deer back to camp, which means stringing it up on a pole and having 4 people carry it while their shoulders scream in protest. Every step is agony, and the deer's dead weight seems to increase exponentially as you walk. Blood drips from the wound, leaving a trail that you hope predators won't follow. When you finally make it back to the cave, everyone's excited. Fresh meat means a few days of not being desperately hungry. But first, you've got to turn this dead animal into food, and that process is about as glamorous as it sounds. You lay the deer on a relatively flat stone surface that serves as your butchering station. It's already stained dark brown from previous kills, and there are flies buzzing around immediately. You're going to be adding to that stain today. Your stone knife is sharp, you made sure of that, but it's nothing like a steel blade. Cutting through hide and muscle requires sawing motions, pressure, and patience. Your first task is to make an incision along the belly to access the internal organs. The smell that hits you when you open the body cavity is overwhelming blood, feces, partially digested plant matter, bile. It's a sensory assault that would make most modern people vomit. But you're not most people. You're starving, and this smell means food. You reach into the warm cavity. The deer only died an hour ago, so it's still body temperature, and start pulling out organs. The heart and liver are prized cuts, full of nutrients and relatively easy to cook. You set them aside carefully, because wasting these would be criminal. The intestines come out in a slippery tangle, and you have to be careful not to rupture them, because that would contaminate the meat with fecal matter. Not that a little contamination would stop anyone from eating, but it does affect the taste, and you've got standards. Low standards, but standards. Blood is everywhere. On your hands, your arms, your chest, soaking into your already disgusting animal hide clothing. It's sticky and warm, and the smell is coppery and strong. Some of it will be cooked and eaten. Blood is nutritious, full of iron and protein. Nothing goes to waste when you're this hungry. Skinning the deer is another ordeal. You work your stone blade between hide and flesh, trying to separate them without cutting through the skin, because that hide is valuable. It'll be used for clothing, bedding, or any number of other purposes. Your hands are cramping from gripping the knife, and your back is bent at an angle that's going to hurt tomorrow. The actual meat comes off in chunks that are not uniform or pretty. You're cutting along natural muscle groups, using your knowledge of anatomy learned through years of doing this. Some pieces are lean, others are fatty, and covered in connective tissue that will need to be chewed for what feels like hours. As you work, you're constantly brushing away flies, and occasionally a bold bird that tries to snatch a piece of meat. Everyone in the tribe takes turns working on the carcass because there's too much for one person to do. Someone's cutting meat. Someone else is scraping the hide clean. Another person is cracking bones to extract the marrow, which is basically Paleolithic butter-rich, fatty, and delicious. The entire butchering process takes the rest of the afternoon. By the time you're done, you're covered head to toe in blood and viscera, exhausted, and somehow even hungrier than when you started. The sight and smell of all that meat has your stomach growling aggressively. But at least tonight, everyone eats. Cooking the meat is the next challenge, and cooking is a generous term for what you're about to do. You don't have pots or pans or any cooking vessels. You've got fire and rocks, and that's about it. Some pieces of meat get speared on sticks and held over the flames. This is a job for someone with patience, because if you hold it too close, it burns on the outside while staying raw inside. Too far away, and it never cooks. You rotate the stick, watching the meat slowly change color, fat dripping into the fire and causing it to flare up. Other chunks get thrown directly onto hot stones at the fire's edge. They sizzle and stick, and someone has to keep turning them with another stick to prevent them from burning entirely. There's no temperature control, no timer, no recipe. This is cooking by instinct and experience. The liver gets special treatment. It's nutrient-dense and relatively tender, so it cooks quickly. Someone slices it thin with a stone blade and lays the pieces on a flat rock that's been heating by the fire. The liver sizzles and curls, and the smell is actually appetizing for once. But here's the dirty secret. A lot of the meat doesn't get fully cooked. Your fire control isn't perfect, you're impatient because you're starving, and honestly, partially raw meat doesn't bother you the way it would bother modern health inspectors. The surface might be charred, but the inside is still red and cool. This means parasites. Tapeworms, in particular, love undercooked meat. You're probably ingesting tapeworm larvae right now as you bite into this venison that's medium rare at best. In a few weeks, you'll have an adult tapeworm living in your intestines, stealing nutrients from your already marginal diet. This is just life. Everyone gathers around the fire for the feast. And yes, it's a feast by your standards. There's actually enough food for everyone to eat until they're full, which happens maybe once a week if you're lucky. You grab a chunk of meat that's hot enough to burn your fingers, and you don't care. You tear into it with your teeth, grease running down your chin. The meat is tough and gamey, with a strong flavor that comes from the deer's diet of wild plants. There's no seasoning, no salt, no herbs to make it palatable. It tastes like meat and blood and smoke, and it's the best thing you've eaten all week. You eat the organ meat's heart, liver, kidneys that are rich and dense and slightly disturbing in texture. You crack bones and suck out the marrow, which is fatty and smooth and coats your mouth in a way that feels decadent. You even gnaw on cartilage and gristle because there's still nutrition there, and wasting anything is unthinkable. For maybe an hour, your stomach is actually full. Not just not starving, but genuinely full, even slightly uncomfortable. It's a rare feeling, and you savor it. Around you, everyone's eating with single-minded focus, occasionally grunting in satisfaction, too busy chewing to talk. The downside of eating this much meat after days of scarcity is that your digestive system is about to have opinions. Strong, urgent opinions that will manifest in the middle of the night. But that's a problem for future you. Present you is eating, and that's all that matters. Living in close quarters with 15 to 25 other humans creates social dynamics that are complex, necessary, and occasionally insufferable. Welcome to the world's first reality TV show, except there's no voting anyone off the island because you need everyone to survive. Your tribe is basically an extended family group with some outsiders who have joined over the years. There's a social hierarchy, but it's not as rigid as you might think. The best hunters have status. The elders who remember where to find food in different seasons have status. The women who know which plants are edible and which will kill you have status. But status doesn't mean luxury, because luxury doesn't exist yet. The best hunter still sleeps on the cave floor, still gets cold, still deals with lice and parasites. They just get slightly larger portions of meat and more say in group decisions. Decision-making is surprisingly democratic for a Stone Age society. When the group needs to decide whether to move to a different cave or which direction to hunt, there's discussion. Not everyone's voice carries equal weight, but everyone gets heard. This is necessary because survival depends on cooperation, and cooperation requires buy-in. Conflicts happen, of course. When you're living on top of each other, tired, hungry, and uncomfortable, tempers flare. Maybe someone didn't contribute enough to the firewood gathering. Maybe someone ate more than their share. Maybe someone made too much noise and scared away game during a hunt. These conflicts usually get resolved through social pressure rather than violence. The group can't afford to lose members to internal fighting. You need every person for the various tasks of survival. So there's arguing, some shouting. Occasionally someone gets temporarily ostracized or given the cold shoulder, and eventually things settle down. Women in your tribe are not subordinate the way they'll become in later agricultural societies. They gather plant foods, which provides a substantial portion of the tribe's calories. They make clothing and baskets. They know medicinal plants. They're essential, and everyone knows it. There's a rough division of labor. Men typically do the hunting. Women typically do the gathering, but it's flexible based on necessity and individual skill. Nobody's sitting around enforcing gender roles when survival is at stake. Children are raised communally to some extent. Everyone watches out for the kids because they represent the tribe's future. But infant and child mortality is brutal. Maybe half of kids don't make it to adulthood, taken by disease, accidents, predators, or simple malnutrition. You've lost siblings. You've lost cousins. Everyone's lost someone. Grief is part of the background radiation of life, something you carry but can't afford to dwell on because there's too much work to do just staying alive. The tribe is your social safety net, your insurance policy, your entertainment system, and your entire social world rolled into one. You'll spend your whole life with these people, for better or worse. There's no moving to a new city, no finding a different job, no escape. This is it. These are your people, forever. Let's talk about injuries, because they're inevitable when your entire life is physically demanding and you've got no safety equipment. Someone's always recovering from something: a sprained ankle, a cut that's infected, a tooth that's abscessed, a fever of unknown origin. You've got your own collection of scars and old injuries. That time you fell while running down a hillside and gashed your leg open on a rock. The burn on your hand from getting too close to the fire. The finger that healed crooked after you caught it between two stones. Your body is a map of past trauma. When someone gets hurt, there's no emergency room, no antibiotics, no surgery beyond the most basic interventions. You've got herbal remedies that sometimes work. Certain plants can reduce inflammation or numb pain. You've got the knowledge that washing wounds with water helps prevent infection, though you don't understand why. Major injuries are often fatal. Break a leg badly enough that you can't walk, and you're dependent on the tribe's willingness to care for you while you heal, if you heal. Some people recover from broken bones, and archaeologists thousands of years from now will marvel at your species' resilience. Others develop infections and die in agony. The human body's inflammatory response is actually pretty impressive. You cut yourself, and within hours, the wound starts swelling and forming a protective scab. Your immune system goes to work fighting any bacteria that got in there. More often than not, minor injuries heal on their own, given time and the body's natural defenses. But when the immune system fails, when an infection takes hold, there's nothing you can do but watch. You've seen people develop fevers that climb and climb until they're delirious, calling out to people who aren't there. You've seen wounds turn red and swollen and begin to smell like death. You've seen strong hunters reduced to shivering, sweating husks who don't recognize their own family members. Sometimes they recover. Sometimes the fever breaks, the infection clears, and they slowly regain strength. But often, they don't. They slip away over days or weeks, their body giving up the fight against microscopic invaders you can't see or understand. Childbirth is particularly dangerous for women. Without modern medical intervention, complications that would be routine to treat today become death sentences. Hemorrhaging, infections, babies positioned wrong. Every pregnancy is a gamble with life or death stakes. You've lost friends to injuries that seem minor at first: a small cut that gets infected, a twisted ankle that somehow leads to a fever, a tooth abscess that spreads to the brain. Death is random and arbitrary, striking the young and healthy just as easily as the old and weak. The tribe has rituals for dealing with death, ways of honoring the lost and processing grief. But underneath the rituals is the cold reality. One less person means one less hunter, one less gatherer, one less set of hands to do the endless work of survival. And in the back of your mind, you know that any day could be the day you join them. A hunting accident, a fall, an infection, a predator. The list of things that can kill you is long, and your ability to prevent any of them is limited. You live with this knowledge every day, this awareness of mortality that modern people rarely have to confront so directly. So you keep moving, keep working, keep surviving. Because what else can you do? As afternoon fades, the light begins to change, and you feel a familiar tension settling over the tribe. Nighttime is coming, and night is when the world belongs to things that can see better in the dark than you can. The sun drops toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and red that would be beautiful if they didn't signal the approach of the most dangerous part of the day. Everyone begins their evening rituals, checking that the fire has enough wood to last through the night, bringing tools and supplies inside the cave, scanning the landscape one more time for threats. You can already feel the temperature dropping. The warmth of the day, such as it was, is evaporating rapidly. In an hour, it'll be cold enough that staying outside the cave will be miserable. In 2 hours, it'll be dangerous. The fire gets built up larger than it was during the day. This serves multiple purposes. Warmth, obviously, but also light and protection. Predators are wary of fire, not afraid enough to guarantee your safety, but wary enough that they usually look for easier prey. Usually, not always. As twilight settles in, the sounds of the landscape change. The daytime birds go quiet, replaced by the calls of nocturnal creatures. Owls hoot in the distance. Something howls, too far away to identify, but close enough to make everyone stop and listen. The darkness isn't just visual, it's auditory, a shift in the entire sensory environment. You retreat into the cave as the last light fades from the sky. Outside, the world becomes an unknown, potentially hostile place. Inside, you have fire and walls and the presence of other humans. It's not safety. Nothing is truly safe, but it's safer than the alternative. The darkness, when it comes, is absolute. Beyond the circle of firelight, you can see nothing. The cave mouth is a black void. The back of the cave is even darker, if that's possible. Your world has shrunk to the flickering radius, illuminated by flames, maybe 15 feet in diameter on a good night. Your eyes, evolved for daytime living, are essentially useless beyond the firelight. You're a diurnal creature trying to survive in a world that doesn't stop being dangerous just because you can't see. This vulnerability is terrifying when you think about it. So mostly, you try not to think about it. The fire itself is hypnotic, dancing flames, casting moving shadows on the cave walls, creating shapes that seem alive. Sometimes you find yourself staring into it, watching the embers glow and fade, losing track of time. Fire is humanity's first television, and it's showing the same program it's shown for hundreds of thousands of years. Everyone stays close to the fire now. The cold, the darkness, and the instinctive fear of what might be lurking outside keeps the tribe clustered together. There's comfort in proximity, in the knowledge that you're not facing the night alone. Your ancestors figured out long ago that groups survive what individuals cannot. With nothing else to do and nowhere to go, the tribe settles in for the evening. And this is when the stories start. Someone begins talking, maybe one of the elders, maybe a good hunter recounting today's chase, maybe someone telling a tale that's been passed down through generations. You don't have writing, you don't have books, you don't have any way to record information except through memory and retelling. Stories are how you preserve knowledge, pass on survival information, and make sense of a world that's often confusing and terrifying. The storyteller's voice carries in the darkness, punctuated by the crackle of the fire. They're describing the hunt, but with embellishments, making it more dramatic than it was in reality. The deer was bigger, the chase was longer, the throw was more perfect. This isn't lying, this is entertainment, education, and social bonding all wrapped into one. Language is relatively new in evolutionary terms. Your species has had complex speech for maybe a few 100,000 years, but you're already masters at using it. You can communicate abstract concepts, describe things that aren't present, discuss plans for the future. This ability to share information verbally is one of the key advantages that's allowed your species to survive and thrive. The children listen with wide eyes, learning how to hunt, where to find food, which plants are poisonous, all disguised as entertainment. The stories repeat patterns, use rhythmic language, include memorable phrases that make them easier to remember. This is oral tradition in its purest form, the foundation of all human culture. Someone tells a story about the time before fire, when humans huddled in the cold and darkness, at the mercy of predators. You're not sure if this story is true, or just a tale meant to make everyone grateful for the flames that now warm you. It doesn't matter. The story serves its purpose, reinforcing the importance of maintaining the fire, passing on the knowledge to the next generation. Another story describes a hunter who went out alone and never returned. This one is definitely meant as a warning. Don't hunt alone. Don't stray too far from the group. Don't think you're invincible just because you've survived this long. The night has consumed many who thought themselves immune to its dangers. The stories blend together. Practical knowledge, warnings, myths about the stars overhead, and the spirits that might inhabit animals or places. You're developing a worldview, a way of understanding reality that helps you make sense of why things happen. Why do people get sick? Spirits. Why did the hunt fail? Angered some force in nature? Why did that person survive an injury when another didn't? Luck, favor, mysterious powers beyond comprehension. As the stories continue, the fire burns lower, and people start to drift off. The storyteller's voice becomes a lullaby, the familiar tales blending with the crackle of flames and the sound of wind outside the cave. This is your evening entertainment, your education system, your oral history archive, and your bedtime routine all at once. Eventually, the talking stops, and it's time to attempt sleep. The fire is banked covered with ash to slow its burning so it lasts through the night without constant attention. Someone will wake up periodically to add wood, a rotating watch that ensures the flames never completely die. You lie down on your grass bedding, which has gotten even flatter and more uncomfortable since this morning. The animal hide gets pulled over you, and you curl into a position that minimizes heat-lost knees drawn up, arms tucked in. Around you, the tribe settles in, a collection of breathing shapes in the dimness. Sleep doesn't come easily or completely. Modern humans, with their comfortable beds and safe houses, can sink into deep, uninterrupted sleep for 8 hours. You get a series of short sleep cycles punctuated by wakeful periods. This pattern is actually natural research into how humans sleep when isolated from artificial light shows that segmented sleep is the norm. You sleep for a few hours, then wake up for a while, then sleep again. During those wakeful periods in the middle of the night, you lie there listening to the darkness. Someone's snoring. The fire is crackling quietly. Outside, something moves, probably just the wind, but you can't be sure. Your sleep is light, alert for danger even in unconsciousness. A sudden noise, a change in the fire's light, an unusual sound from outside, any of these will wake you instantly. Deep, relaxed sleep is a luxury your species can't afford. Dreams come in fragmented bursts. You dream about hunting, about running from something with teeth, about food, about the people you've lost. Your subconscious is processing the day's stresses and fears, working through scenarios that might help you survive tomorrow. Sometime in the middle of the night, nature calls. Getting up means leaving the relative warmth of your sleeping spot, stumbling through the darkness to the cave entrance, going outside where it's even colder and darker, and trying to pee or defecate while being hyper-aware of how vulnerable you are right now. This is not a pleasant experience. You hurry through the process, eyes scanning the darkness for movement, ears straining for sounds that might indicate a predator. Every shadow looks threatening. Every sound is potentially dangerous. You finish quickly and scramble back to the fire's safety, heart pounding from the adrenaline. Back in your sleeping spot, it takes a while to warm up again and settle down. The cold has seeped into your bones, and your animal hide covering has lost some of its warmth. You huddle closer to the person sleeping next to you, sharing body heat, and eventually drift back into that light, alert sleep. The night stretches on, seemingly endless. Hours pass in a cycle of dozing, waking, listening, dozing again. You're never fully rested, never completely unconscious, always hovering in that zone between sleep and wakefulness. This is normal. This is how humans are supposed to sleep, at least according to millions of years of evolution. Let's talk about what happens when the weather turns nasty. Because Stone Age shelter is barely adequate in good conditions and completely insufficient when nature gets angry. You can feel it coming, the pressure change, the shift in the wind, the particular quality of the clouds. A storm is rolling in, and you've got nowhere to go except deeper into this cave that's already damp and cold. The rain starts as a light patter, then builds to a roar. Water begins finding its way into the cave through cracks, through the entrance where wind drives it in, through any opening in the rock. Your careful fire, the source of warmth and light and safety, starts smoking badly as moisture affects the wood. Everyone huddles deeper into the cave, trying to stay away from the water pouring in through the entrance. But there's only so far back you can go before you're in complete darkness, in areas you usually avoid, where the floor is uneven and unknown. The temperature drops sharply as wet cold seeps into everything. Your animal hide clothing absorbs water and becomes heavy, clammy, and loses most of its insulating properties. You're shivering violently, and so is everyone else. The fire is your lifeline, but keeping it going in these conditions is nearly impossible. The wood is getting wet. Smoke fills the cave because the wind is blowing it back inside. Someone's constantly trying to shield the flames with their body, using themselves as a windbreak. If the fire goes out completely, you're in serious trouble. In the dark, in the wet, in the cold, hypothermia becomes a real and immediate threat. People can die from exposure even in temperatures that don't seem that extreme, especially when wet. Thunder crashes outside, close enough to feel it in your chest. Lightning illuminates the cave entrance in brief, stark flashes that are simultaneously comforting, because you can see that nothing's immediately threatening you, and terrifying, because they reveal just how violent the world has become. You're all packed together now, sitting upright because lying down means lying in puddles, trying to stay warm through shared body heat and the feeble fire that's mostly smoke at this point. The children are crying. The adults are grim and silent. Everyone's miserable. The storm lasts hours, maybe all night. Time loses meaning when you're just enduring, waiting for it to be over. Your world has contracted to this moment, this discomfort, this desperate hope that the fire stays lit and the cave doesn't flood completely. When dawn finally comes and the rain slows to a drizzle, you emerge to survey the damage. Everything you left outside is gone, blown away, or washed away. The area around the cave entrance is a muddy disaster. Your carefully gathered firewood is soaked. But you're alive. The fire survived. The cave, as terrible as it is, kept you from the worst of the storm. You'll spend today trying to dry out, finding new firewood, repairing damage, preparing for the next crisis. Because there's always a next crisis. This is Stone Age life, a constant battle against the elements with inadequate tools and shelter, where a bad storm can set you back days, and a really bad storm can kill. You're surviving at the mercy of forces you can't control or predict beyond basic pattern recognition. And you'll do this over and over for your entire life until something age, injury, illness, or just bad luck finally takes you down. Let's talk about what it means to get old in the Stone Age, though old is a relative term when most people don't make it past 35. If you've managed to survive into your 30s, you're an elder, a repository of knowledge, someone who's beaten the odds. The average life expectancy is somewhere around 33 years, dragged down by brutal infant and child mortality. But here's the thing. If you made it through childhood, if you survived the dangerous years of learning to hunt and gather, you might actually make it into your 40s or even 50s. It's rare, but it happens. Your body starts breaking down earlier than it would in the modern era. The constant physical labor, the injuries that never quite heal right, the wear and tear on joints from sleeping on stone floors and carrying heavy loads, it all adds up. By your late 20s, you're already feeling aches that modern people don't experience until their 50s. The elders in your tribe, the ones who've made it into their 40s, are walking libraries of survival information. They remember which plants are safe to eat and which will kill you. They know the migration patterns of animals. They've weathered droughts and harsh winters and can predict weather patterns based on subtle environmental cues. This is actually one of humanity's secret weapons, the existence of grandparents. Around 30,000 years ago, something changed, and suddenly humans started living long enough that 3 generations could coexist. Grandmothers could help raise grandchildren. freeing up the parents to hunt and gather more efficiently. Grandfathers could teach young hunters techniques refined over decades. But getting old also means becoming vulnerable. Your teeth, worn down from a lifetime of use, start falling out or breaking, making it harder to eat. Your eyesight dims, your hearing fades, your joints stiffen. Tasks that were once easy become difficult or impossible. The tribe cares for its elders because their knowledge is valuable, but there's a pragmatic calculation happening. Can this person still contribute? Can they share information, watch children, prepare hides, make tools? If someone becomes too incapacitated to help at all, the tribe faces a difficult decision. You've seen people reach the end. Some die suddenly, an accident, an infection, a heart that simply stops. Others fade slowly, becoming weaker and more confused over weeks or months. There's grief, but it's tempered by pragmatism. Death is so common that you can't afford to let it paralyze you. The truly remarkable thing is that humans care for their sick and elderly at all. Archaeological evidence shows Paleolithic people with healed injuries that would have required months of care, broken bones set and splinted, wounds tended until they closed. This compassion, this willingness to invest resources in people who might not survive, is part of what makes humans successful as a species. But compassion has limits when survival is at stake. Resources are finite. Food is scarce. Sometimes difficult choices have to be made about who gets the extra portion of meat, who gets carried when the tribe needs to move, who receives care, and who doesn't. You live with the knowledge that someday, probably someday soon, it'll be your turn. You'll be the one too weak to hunt, too slow to gather, too old to keep up. And the tribe will have to decide whether your knowledge is worth the cost of keeping you alive. Despite all the suffering, all the discomfort, all the constant grinding hardship, humans are surviving. More than surviving, they're thriving, in their own brutal way. Your species has a superpower that no other creature possesses to quite the same degree: adaptability. You're not the strongest animal, not the fastest, not the best adapted to any particular environment, but you're adaptable in a way that allows you to live almost anywhere. Humans are inhabiting environments that would seem impossible: Arctic tundra, scorching deserts, dense rainforests, high-altitude mountains. No other large mammal has this range. And you're doing it without fur, without claws, without specialized adaptations beyond your big brain and your ability to use tools. This adaptability isn't just physical, it's cognitive and cultural. You can learn. You can change strategies. You can pass information to the next generation, allowing each person to build on the knowledge of those who came before. When the climate shifts, when food sources change, when the old ways stop working, humans adjust. Not always successfully, plenty of groups have gone extinct when they couldn't adapt fast enough. But enough survived to keep the species going. And those survivors carry forward the lessons learned through failure. Your tribe has developed survival strategies specific to this environment. You know which caves offer the best shelter. You know the seasonal patterns of game animals. You know which plants become edible at what time of year. This knowledge isn't instinctive. It's learned and transmitted through language and demonstration. The ability to teach and learn might be humanity's most important adaptation. Every generation doesn't have to start from scratch, figuring out how to make fire or which mushrooms are poisonous. They learn from their elders, and then they innovate, making small improvements that get passed forward. Someone figured out how to attach a stone point to a wooden shaft more securely, and now everyone uses that technique. Someone discovered that certain herbs help with pain, and now everyone knows about them. Someone realized that hunting in a particular formation increases success rates, and now that's the standard method. These tiny improvements accumulate over generations. Your great-great-grandparents had fewer tools, less refined techniques, more limited knowledge. Your great-great-grandchildren will have more of everything because you're building on what came before and adding your own discoveries. This is culture in its most basic form, information transmitted socially rather than genetically. And it's accelerating. Humans are changing not through biological evolution, which takes thousands of generations, but through cultural evolution, which happens within lifetimes. Someday, thousands of years from now, your descendants will look back at this era and marvel at how anyone survived with such primitive technology. They won't understand that what looks like deprivation to them is actually an incredible achievement, humans conquering diverse environments with nothing but rocks, sticks, and determination. It's not all suffering. Even in the Stone Age, even with all the hunger and cold and constant work, there are moments of something approaching happiness. The warmth of the fire on a cold night, surrounded by your tribe, full of fresh meat after a successful hunt. That's as close to contentment as you can get. The feeling doesn't last, but for a few hours, life is good. There's satisfaction in skilled work. Creating a well-balanced spear, napping a stone blade with clean edges, sewing a hide garment that fits properly. These accomplishments matter. You're creating something with your hands, seeing the direct result of your effort. In its own way, this is more fulfilling than much of the disconnected labor modern humans will do thousands of years from now. Children playing is a universal source of joy. Even here, in conditions that would horrify modern parents, kids find ways to play. They chase each other around the cave entrance. They make toys from bones and sticks. They pretend to hunt, mimicking the adults with small spears. Their laughter echoes off the cave walls, and for a moment, the harshness of existence feels less heavy. Music exists in its primitive form. Bone flutes that produce simple melodies. Rhythmic drumming on hollow logs or stretched hides. The human voice raised in wordless songs around the fire. These aren't sophisticated compositions, but they're expressions of something beyond mere survival. The need to create, to make beauty, to communicate emotions that language can't quite capture. Art is beginning to emerge. Handprints on cave walls, made by pressing a palm against stone and blowing ochre powder around it. Simple drawings of animals, scratched into soft stone with harder implements. These aren't just decorations, they're statements of existence, ways of saying, I was here, I lived, I mattered. There's intimacy and connection. Huddling together for warmth becomes bonding. Grooming each other for lice is social time. Sharing food, telling stories, teaching children. These activities create relationships that go beyond simple survival cooperation. Sexual pleasure exists, obviously, though it's complicated by the lack of privacy. the general discomfort of bodies that are always somewhat dirty and sore, and the ever-present awareness that sex leads to pregnancy, and pregnancy is dangerous. Still, humans find moments, find desire, find connection. There's the pleasure of a full stomach, rare but intense. The relief of pain ending when an injury finally heals. The satisfaction of waking up after a decent night's sleep. These aren't grand joys, but in a life defined by discomfort, their absence makes their occasional presence feel profound. Nature provides moments of beauty that even exhausted, hungry humans can appreciate. A particularly stunning sunset. The first flowers of spring indicating that the harsh winter is ending. The sight of a herd of animals in the distance, promising food if the hunt goes well. Joy in the Stone Age is simple and fleeting. It's measured not in lasting happiness, but in brief reprieves from hardship. Small pleasures that provide just enough emotional sustenance to keep going. But it exists, and it matters. The sun is setting again, painting the sky in the same colors it did yesterday and will tomorrow. Another day survived. Another night to get through. You're exhausted in a way that's become so normal you barely register it. Your muscles ache. Your stomach isn't quite satisfied even though you ate today. Your skin itches from various parasites and unwashed grime. This is just how bodies feel. The fire is being built up for the night again. Someone's checking to make sure there's enough wood to last until morning. Someone else is setting out the sleeping spots, arranging hides and grass bedding. The routine is so ingrained that it happens almost without conscious thought. You lie down in your usual spot, feeling the familiar hardness of the cave floor beneath the inadequate padding. The sounds of the tribe settling in for sleep surround you, coughing, shifting, low murmured conversations. Tomorrow will be more of the same. Gathering wood, finding food, making and repairing tools, staying warm, staying alive. There's no weekend, no vacation, no retirement. This is life until it isn't. But you've made it through today, and that's the only goal that matters. You survived. Your tribe survived. The fire is burning. The cave is providing shelter. And you're not alone. As sleep begins to pull you under in its usual fragmented, half-aware way, your last conscious thought is simple. Tomorrow. You'll deal with tomorrow when tomorrow comes. The fire crackles softly, the darkness presses in, and you sleep. So there you have it. A day in the life of early Homo sapiens, or more accurately, a day in the survival of early Homo sapiens. Not quite the romantic caveman existence that popular culture likes to imagine, is it? You've spent the last however many thousand words experiencing cold, hunger, smoke, parasites, fear, discomfort, and unrelenting physical labor. You've felt the constant threat of injury, illness, and death hanging over every moment. You've lived through the grinding reality that our ancestors faced every single day of their lives. And now, right now, in this moment, you get to appreciate what you have. That mattress you're lying on, that's a miracle. The roof over your head that keeps out rain and wind and predators, incredible luxury. The fact that you can reach over and turn on a light, dispelling darkness instantly? Our ancestors would have thought that was magic. You have access to clean water whenever you want it. You have food that's been safely stored and prepared without risk of parasites. You have medicine for when things go wrong. You have warmth that doesn't require constant feeding of flames. You have a life expectancy that would seem impossible to Paleolithic humans. So as you drift off to sleep in your comfortable bed, in your temperature-controlled room, with your full stomach, and your lack of predators and your general absence of survival-threatening situations, take a moment to feel grateful. Grateful that you were born in an era with antibiotics and agriculture and roofs that don't leak. Those early humans, struggling in their caves with their stone tools and their constant hunger, they survived so that eventually, after thousands of generations, you could exist. You're here because they persevered through unimaginable hardship, with nothing but adaptability, cooperation, and stubborn determination. Sleep well, exhausted listener. Your ancestors earned this comfort for you, paid for it with countless difficult lives, lived one hard day at a time. Honor their struggle by enjoying the peace they made possible. Good night, tired listener, and until next time.